less number of teams, so the time really won't be an issue. So you all can be flexible about the timelines. Feel free to pitch your solution in a very comprehensive way so that everyone gets a good grasp over it. And while pitching, keep your cameras open. After you complete your pitching, the floor is open to anyone and everyone for questioning and to ask whatever doubts you have regarding the solution. So are we ready to go ahead? Atharva, have you started the recording? Yeah, so we can start. Atharva, you can coordinate with the team.
Yeah, we'll start.
So, Shruti can start with the presentation.
Is my screen visible?
It is.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. So, this is a brief case study on Sarmaya Arts Foundation presented by Shruti and me. Sarmaya Arts Foundation is a Mumbai-based non-profit organization which is quite popular among students, tourists, and art enthusiasts. And despite its popularity and having almost 2 million footfall a year, it is still facing losses. Thus, we are trying to investigate and reinstate the profits while having the non-profit model at its core. So, the few causes of decline in revenue, which we could narrow down to, are the decrease in the number of tourists visiting the museum, the extremely low and static price for tickets for the age, and the unoptimized membership model for the art enthusiasts. So, coming to the second question, we are trying to optimize the membership prices. From the graph, we could see 180 is almost is the number where the revenue is maximum. Thus, we, according to our own calculations, we arrived at the figure of 179 rupees per year. And at this number, there is a huge psychological implication on the art enthusiast, thus ensuring maximum profits and revenue. Over to you, Shruti.
So after tweaking the membership price, we realized that the revenue could not be we could not break even the revenue. Therefore, we have made certain other price tweaks which could possibly help. First is that we realized that rupees 10 is a very minimal amount given how expensive Mumbai is, and therefore we have increased the ticket price for students to rupees 20 rather than 10. The number of students visiting year after year have increased. Even after doubling the price, we do not expect the numbers to go lesser than 10 lakhs. So 10 lakhs is like the lowest number that can be achieved, that according to us. And rupees 2 crores is the revenue, that is the minimum revenue that the student visits could give us. Now let's come to the tourist part. The number of tourists have been decreasing. So to increase the amount, we have decreased the ticket price at the entry level, but the prices of the gifts and the services provided inside the museum have been are suggested to be a little more expensive, so that the average turns out to be rupees 70 rather than 50. So all in all, the tourists would give us a better revenue than the present pricing system. Okay, so next one. Okay. Some of the recommendations that we would like to suggest is that, as we see from the data that is given to us, that even if the memberships have been constant at 50,000, the number of visits by these members have been increasing year after year. In 2020, we see there are 8 lakh visits from 50,000 people, which is around like 16 visits per people, per art enthusiast. That is a good number. Therefore, that suggests that the art enthusiasts are very much interested in the art and the artifacts, the culture that the museum has to provide. We could use this in order to collect donations from these art enthusiasts. We could create a community of these art enthusiasts who would interact with one another, and we could create like a members only club, and these members could definitely help us with some donation, and therefore we could increase the donation price to over 1 crore. Also, these art enthusiasts could also conduct educational programs for the tourists and the visitors and the students, and that would be funded by the museum. And there would be a minimum entry fee to these programs, which would go to the profits for the museum. We are also suggesting tie-ups with schools and colleges so as to increase the awareness of this art culture that the museum has to provide, so that the students are more enthusiastic about this. And lastly, we would want to suggest virtual tours for all those people who are unable to visit the museum physically. So yeah, thank you guys. That was our presentation. Thank you for your patient hearing. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Okay, so my question is that you suggest tie-ups with schools, right?
Yeah.
So if how do you suggest these tie-ups happen? Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So like the people inside the museum or even the art enthusiasts, as in they are, if we are considering them to be a part of the community, we could go to different schools and teach them about the art, the culture that India has, or make it a little more educational. That way, the profit that comes from that part wouldn't be like taxed, because we are also keeping the non-profit model intact.
Okay, so my question
In fact, we could offer deals to schools where they could bring their students to a museum and the foundation, and they could be deeply involved with us at a reasonable price too.
Okay, so my question to you is that a deal for, as you said, Anish, for a deal to happen, you have to give something too, right? They get you students, you give something too. So usually, whatever school trips that happen, yeah, they're at a very subsidized rate. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So suppose a student was visited at, suppose, rupees 2 or 3 per head, right?
Yeah.
So suppose a student was visited for rupees 2 or 3 per head. Why will he visit again? I mean, if a student goes, he's like going once. So you are killing your own, target audience in the student.
Okay, that's a fair question, but I think rupees 2-3 would be a little too less for even deals, and the number of students and schools in a highly populated place like Mumbai is a lot. So it's definitely not a closed set where the number of students would anyhow decrease based on a few tie-ups that we have with some of the schools in Mumbai or
Also,
colleges.
another
Coming
thing,
to your question, coming
another
to your answer again. Okay, go on.
This is
Sukriti.
another thing, yeah. So as I suggested, these are like educational programs for these students. Once they're interested in the whatever art that the museum has to provide, these people, these students, they become repeat visitors for us. And therefore, of course, if they love what we have to offer, they would come again.
See,
Isn't that
that's
so?
the point. On paper, your idea is very good. Like, तुमने students को बुलाया, they come here, they like it, and they visit. But suppose initially you 10 students out of curiosity were coming to you, right? Out of them, only 2 or 3 is gonna visit back. हाँ, for the second time. अब अगर तुम्हारे ज्यादा स्टूडेंट्स आ गए, so how will, like, उसमें तो तुम्हारे numbers कम हो जाएंगे. Plus, given the fact that, as Anish said, that Mumbai is a huge city and a lot of schools, no school will take their students like 10-15 kilometers far away in a crowded city like that just to see an art museum. क्योंकि बहुत सारे art museums, right? There are a lot of art museums. Nobody will. So your tie-ups will be only to the schools that are around you, not like they are distributed all across the city.
Yeah, so I
Yes.
guess that is possible. Like we are tying up with the schools around us so that they are interested in us.
तो वही तो बोल रहे थे, इससे तो तुम्हारा like your student target group will be like even it will be slaughtered if you go in for tie-ups.
As in,
So coming,
like the ones, yeah.
no, go ahead.
Yeah. No, say.
So do you think, Supriti, rather than your collaboration with the school model is fine, especially if you're collaborating with the schools in your in the surroundings of this museum, and even if I think if you're offering some quality which is greater than the other museums are offering, then of course tying up with schools and colleges from a distant neighborhood would also make sense. But don't you think also customer retention, customer satisfaction is something that everyone looks forward to? So what about offering the repeat visitors a sort of membership plan or something like that that is meant for the art enthusiasts? Suppose you're keeping a track of the students who are coming, and for the repeat visitors, you can offer a membership plan, and that will probably help you retain the students more.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
do that. Absolutely,
Yeah, we could do that.
And I think coming to Sparsh's question about how tie-ups with schools could damage us, our business. I think that is not true, because the schools wouldn't really send their students to us multiple times, but in the few times that they send the students to us, I think we could gain the number of students who could be possibly interested in us in future, and they would repeatedly start visiting us, even though they didn't in case they didn't know about us, or initially they weren't really sure about visiting us, or they couldn't due to other circumstances.
Right. Anish, I got your point. Could you just take me to the slide where you all calculated the membership fee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just tell me the basis of this assumption of 179? I get it. Why not 180? Why 179? But how did you all arrive at 180 in the first place? Can we get a thing for that?
Yeah, so multiplying the annual membership fee and the footfall would give us the total revenue from the membership fee. We could clearly see that 180 gives us the maximum. 180 at 90,000 gives us the maximum number, but there's a slight anomaly in the graph, so we decided to go for the figure 179. That wouldn't really decrease the profits by a lot, and also 179 does play a psychological impact on people, and it helps us boost the number of art enthusiasts who are taking the memberships again.
Right. But how did you all get this figure 90,334? Is it by some sort of linear
Yeah,
interpolation that you all did or
yeah,
something?
absolutely. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, like that's like we calculated the slope and then we multiplied it with 179. Yeah, in straight line. That's like
Got
if
it.
we have a line,
Got it,
we
got
know
it.
the point.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah. Once, just take me to the
But
previous
where
slide.
is the anomaly in the graph? Where is the anomaly at 179?
No, not at 179. You could see that at 180 membership price, like there are 2 points in the number of members applying. So we decided to avoid that and went for the nearest figure 179.
So that's
Yeah,
more
but
of a psychological perspective that you are taking at 179, because at
Yeah,
180
both.
it can happen that 80,000 and 90,000 members will be applying for the membership.
Yeah,
Then
both.
you're making an assumption that is not based on the graph, right? Because in the graph there is 179 you wouldn't get 90,334.
No, you could like calculate the slope of the line.
No,
Like
we are
it's a straight
getting
line from
They
180.
need a linear interpolation
The
of
line,
things.
it's a straight, it's a
But the fact is still there that 180 पे maximum footfall is 90,000, right? उन लोगों का 179 पे 90,000 के ऊपर चला गया.
हाँ.
Alright.
No, the maximum, as in we are calculating the revenue. So at 180, we get 1.62 CR. At 179, we are getting like around 1619 something, like very close. So that's why we went for a higher psychological
Fair
impact.
enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, and just take me to the previous slide once again. I think I noticed something there. Yeah, so
I have a question.
Trushan, 1 second, can I go ahead once?
Yeah, sure.
So the decrease in the number of tourists visiting the museum. So what exact plan do you all have for increasing the number of tourists visiting the museum?
We have decreased the ticket price at the entry level. I guess that could work.
Right. Okay. So the tourist ticket prices decrease and the student ticket prices increase. Is that the solution that you all suggested?
Yes, the tourist ticket price at the entry level has decreased, but when they, of course, the tourists would want to buy some of the gifts or the services that the museum has to provide, and for that, the price charges have increased.
But when it comes to purchasing items like a gift or a souvenir from something, it's mostly about seeing something and buying. So it's more about the buying behavior of the customers. So maybe keeping the price of gift items at a lower price would make more sense. That would instill, the buying instinct of the customers would be more, rather than keeping a higher price for the gifts.
Okay,
It
so
could be.
yeah,
I
that
guess
makes sense.
we thought that with a lower entry fee, more customers would be drawn towards our.
Yeah, the footfall will be
foundation.
greater.
Yeah, yeah,
there's
greater.
no
So-
doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we thought is like once the tourists are inside, they would love to visit wherever the museum has to offer, and when they go back, they would collect like a souvenir or two for the relatives or friends. So in that case, I guess that's what we thought.
Fair
Once
enough.
you're inside, then you want to buy. Like that's the
Fair enough.
And
So-
I have a question.
Then can we move on to the next team? We can entertain
Okay.
the questions at the end because we're running short of
Okay.
time. Yeah, thanks Supriti,
Thank you.
thanks Anish. Atharva, we can go ahead with the next team.
I have a question.
The questions at the end if you don't mind. So,
Yeah, I'll just share my screen. All right. So today we're presenting a case study on Sarmaya Arts Foundation. It's by me, Sparsh and Sukalyan. So as we know, the problem statement here is Sarmaya Arts Foundation is a Mumbai-based non-profit organization. It's a Mumbai-based non-profit organization. They store arts of all sorts. Over the last 3 years, they've seen a steady appraisal in the number of visits, but their revenue has decreased. So we're trying to figure out what is causing this. So before we move any further, we'll state our assumptions. Our first assumption is that the organization has enough reserves or a stable loaning system so that they can start on new projects. Whatever projects we'll be proposing, they'll be able to start on them. They have enough funds. Second assumption would be no big economic events have happened in the time period we're considering here, so that would not bring the demand down. And third of all, from 2018 to 2020, nothing has happened that might have hampered the organization's reputation, which might cause a decline in the people that visit the museum. So the current key sources of revenue are sales of tickets to students and tourists, gift items purchased by tourists, membership fees of art enthusiasts, and donations and grants by the government. Our client base majorly consists of students, tourists, and art enthusiasts. So let's tackle the first question. The first question was that what is the cause for decline in revenue? So as we can see from the numbers given here, even though the total has increased, the share that has been coming from each group is very scattered. In terms of students, we see there has been a steady growth, which is 1 lakh per annum. Whereas in terms of tourists, which is the group that makes the biggest revenue, the numbers have decreased a lot. This is the biggest cause where we're losing money right now. Also, in terms of art enthusiasts, we noticed that the visits have increased a lot, and this might give an impression that the museum is doing so well in terms of business, but it is not, because the memberships have remained steady throughout the 3 years. The memberships are 50,000. People are just trying to take in the most advantage of the money they're paying through the memberships. So the visits have increased, but the memberships have not increased. Hence, because of this, as the visits have increased, the maintenance cost goes up, whereas the revenue does not. So as we can see, the revenue is going down because the profit is going down and the cost is going up. So we're losing on both fronts. We can see this through a graph as well. For example, we can see here that visits have been up in terms of art enthusiasts a lot, whereas they have been decreasing in terms of tourists. But as soon as we see the revenue structure, the revenue that is coming from the students remains the same, whereas the revenue that is coming from the art enthusiasts also remains the same. But the major loss here is tourists. Great. Sukalyan can take over now.
Okay. So the next question was, what would be the optimum membership price? Deriving from the graph that is given in the problem statement, if we consider that nothing changes and we continue with the existing regime of subscription, so in that case, optimum pricing should be 180 rupees. In the graph, it is shown that for the subscription price for 180 rupees, the number of subscribers is between 80,000 and 90,000. So if we consider an average subscription of 85,000, which is 70% increase, and for 85,000 subscribers, the revenue generated will be 153 crores, and which is a 53% increase. Uh, can you move to the next slide? And in this slide, we have shown the trends, like for this membership price. This is the corresponding number of members, and this is the revenue that is generated. So by calculation, we have found that for 180 rupees, the maximum amount of revenue is generated.
Okay, so I'll be tackling the third problem. That is how will we increase our revenue. So in the optimum condition that we have seen, our revenue does not break even, right? We reach 1.53 CR, but we need 6 CR, given that 1 crore comes from donation and grants from the government. So we have to tackle this decline in two major ways. That is increase in footfall by various schemes. So basically, the basic concept is that more people come into the museum. They pay in tickets. Some hopefully buy gifts and everything, and we get more revenue. And second thing is like we have seen one of the biggest problems is that the art enthusiasts who have memberships, they come in, they have huge visits, but their visits is not as profitable to us because we are not making money out of their visits. So we have to optimize these two conditions basically. So our first recommendation is that we start a aesthetic museum art themed restaurant inside the museum, given that it will be a huge attraction to the student as well as the tourist target crowd we have. The expected increase will be around 50%, around 3 million will be the footfall for that, and a profit margin will be around 40%. So the revenue generated from the restaurant operations will be around 1.5 CR. Next slide. Our second recommendation is that we organize art festivals, exhibitions, and other with separate tickets and merchandise and gift counters, which will also generate a huge revenue for us. Around 80 lakhs will be generated in revenue from these events. Our third recommendation is that we have a new membership structure where we have the membership cost remains the same, that is rupees 180, but we also give benefits like 20% discount on food items and entry to all events conducted by them. So that will give us an increase to expected membership. That will increase our expected memberships to 1.2 lakhs, and it will generate a revenue of 2.16 CR. And a fourth recommendation is that we increase our digital reach so that more people, given that most students and tourists have are look up to for places digitally and then they visit them. So if we increase our digital reach, we will have the greater footfall to our. Next slide. Okay, so here is our renewed revenue structure where the student tickets cost the same and around 15 lakh students visit our museum. That gives us a revenue around 1.5 CR. The tourist tickets and in-store purchase, given that the tourist increase is around 3.2 CRs, given that 50 rupees is the entry fees and 30 is the entry fees and 50 is the average purchase value. And enthusiast membership is around 1.1 lakhs, with around taking it as 1.1 lakh members are there. We'll have around 1.98 CRs. The government grants we'll consider to be same, that is 1 CR. And the exhibition tickets and merchandise sale will value us up to 80 lakhs. The marketing cost will be around 5 lakhs. So around the and the restaurant sales will add up to 1.5 CR. So the total revenue in this system will be around 9.93 CR. So the increase, we see that there is an increased revenue here. So the increased revenue is also a compensation to whatever capital we have invested in the making of the restaurants and organization and everything. And given the fact that we have a greater footfall, we'll have higher maintenance costs. So the case of break even will be achieved. Given that even if there is excess revenue, it can be used to source new artifacts and organize charity drives. It's given that it is said that you cannot do too much charity. So yeah,
So basically, what we're trying to achieve in our structure is to create a whole experience around the museum, to like take it away from just being a museum to creating an experience where you have exhibitions, where you have an art themed restaurant, because when you provide an experience, the footfall is supposed to increase as it is. So that'll be our presentation. Thank you.
Are you open to questions?
Yep.
Yep. So it was given in the case that only 50,000 passes will be sold at all costs. Only 50,000.
Yeah.
So yeah. So how could you include an increased number of art enthusiasts in the whole calculation?
1 second, Devamita, before you reply, Atharva and Boivab, can you just coordinate the questions a bit? I got a call. I'll be coming back.
Yeah, so as I was saying, the condition that was given, it was actually not a condition. It was presenting the current state. It said that 50,000 is what has remained through the 3 years. There was no mention that it has to remain 50,000. It's remaining 50,000. That's a minus point. That's what we have to improve. So we organized all of these schemes so that it can go up from 50,000.
But
if it was 50,000,
50,000 memberships are sold.
Yeah.
So
because that's what's happening. That is not what is supposed to happen. There is no limit to the memberships.
Yeah. Plus, if the 50,000 membership thing is there, then what is the use of the second question where we have to optimize the price for the membership?
So okay, so I just asked the same thing with I asked the same thing to Sharadeep. He told me that the graph that you see is actually the variation of the prices according to the demand of the tickets. So say if there are 30,000 applying for 50,000 passes, the price of each ticket increases. But the base number of passes will be 50,000 only per year.
But that has not been mentioned anywhere in the case. That was not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what happens.
Yeah.
But I have a question. How can the figure go up to 1.1 lakh?
1.1 lakh where?
In the revenue breakdown?
Because we're organizing all of these new schemes, right? If there's a restaurant, there are exhibitions, the incoming visitors are supposed to increase. According to the graph, if everything remains same, then wait, let me finish.
But yes,
let me finish.
Okay.
If everything remains same, then the number stays between 80 to 90,000. But because we're doing new things, the demand is supposed to increase that way. Yeah, what
but you have multiplied 1.1 lakh into 180, and 180 is the membership fee.
Yeah, so we are proposing a new system where we generate revenue, right? So if we are crunching new numbers with the old data that has been given us and not using the data we have got, like if you project the earnings of any company, you'll not use profits or costing of the previous year, right? You'll project the costing for a new year. So that's exactly what we have done. We have taken the increased expected footfall and we have calculated an expected revenue. That's
okay, you have but by graphically we know that the expected figure should be around 90,000 max at 180 price, and
but
you are in.
But the graph is for the previous condition; it's not for the new condition, right?
When the graph is made, there is no.
Yes. I just want you to justify that in new condition there can be 20,000 increase over 90,000.
Because we're doing marketing. Why do you think the restaurant had visitors up to 5 lakh tourists in terms of tourists, but it has decreased? The visits have been like the unique visitors have either stayed similar or have decreased. Why is that? Because it is not being marketed well. It does not mean there is a less of a demand. It's not being marketed well. So we market it better. We bring in new resources to attract new customers. So there is a customer base. We're just utilizing it better.
Then wouldn't the marketing costs go up?
Yeah, we did mention
Yeah,
about
so we
it.
have incurred marketing costs, right? We have incurred
We did
marketing
mention
costs in our.
But that's probably
revenue.
around 5 lakh, right?
Yeah, because we're doing digital marketing. Digital marketing does not mean more than 5 lakh.
Okay, but one more
Okay.
thing, you just pointed out that 1.5 crores will come from restaurant business.
Yeah.
But restaurant
Yeah.
businesses are not that profitable. They are
Okay,
seldom profitable.
Yeah,
If
right.
you consider that. So
I
how
was
can you just say
confused.
that you get 1.5 crores and then you do the marketing out of that money that you get and everything?
Okay, so you're telling me 1.5 CR for a restaurant in a museum that is aesthetically pleasing is a very huge amount, then I do not agree with you. Okay, I definitely do not agree with you because that statement is not technically correct, right? 1.5 CR is easily
can be
available
technically
for a
correct.
well-established.
If
No, it's
you
not.
Can
look,
be
we're
technically
based on facts. Because I don't run a business, I don't run a restaurant, I don't know the figures. I Google things, and what the figure was: ki profits may a well-running restaurant in Calcutta, and this will not be low end. This will be mid to high, obviously, because it's in a museum. So the profit, just the profit is 4 crores. We're considering very less. Pura revenue, we're taking 1.5 crores. So we're considering actually very less than what is going to happen if
No,
it runs
but
like-
if we go practically, then the fact still remains that maybe the restaurant fails, and when
Okay,
that fails,
if we go
it's
practically,
not
let's go practically. Let's go practically. You have a student
You
base,
just
you
present
have
your
a tourist
screen
base.
also.
yeah,
before
the
you tell,
presentation.
just present the screen also.
Sure. Which page would you like to see?
The restaurant part. Yeah, this one.
Tell me.
So when you are considering exhibitions and merchandise, it has its own costs. So have you considered those numbers?
Yeah, that's why our total revenue has increased. We for break even in the case it was mentioned that we need 7 crores, but we increased our revenue to a point so that we can like add these new activities because we would need capex for the restaurant. We would need some money for the exhibition.
Right. So can you go to the slide 6 once? I think there is some mistake.
Slide 6. Could you tell me what the topic was?
Wow. There was revenue profit equals it should be profit equals to revenue minus cost. I think there was some mistake there.
Okay, possible. Just a second.
Yeah, this one.
What?
I think this should change.
This equation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be wrong. That I'm not taking like a thing for that.
It's
Can be
not a
wrong.
major problem. Just point
Yeah,
it.
that is probably wrong. I'm not sure honestly.
Okay,
Question.
I have a question. Can you go down? I'll see you when to stop.
Or you just tell me the topic.
The reforms that you people, the reform number 2, recommendation number 2 or reform number 2.
Just a second.
Again.
Yeah, so the organizing art festivals, exhibitions, and everything. So expected increase in revenue means like see for organizing all this, they will be costing. So did you people include that like with your calculations?
Yeah,
Okay,
we just
so
said
here
that
you guys.
9.93 crores. We made our break even higher.
Yeah,
Because
and
we'll
given the
be-
fact that
रेस्टोरेंट का कैपिटल कहाँ से ला रहे हो?
Revenue we've increased 7 crores. So we've done our revenue to 9.93 so that we can pay for the extra. Also, in our assumptions, we had clearly mentioned that the restaurant either has a source of funding or they can take loans. So the new revenue they generate, they'll pay their loans. points to that.
And one more thing, like in your recommendation 3, expected membership 1.2 lakhs.
Yeah.
I mean, how sure are you with the numbers? Like every year you'll have 1.2 lakhs people taking your membership.
When you're opening a restaurant, when you're doing exhibitions, people come in. Anyway, according to the graph, if nothing changes, the memberships at 180 is 90 lakhs. So there'll be 30 lakh increase. When you're doing marketing, you're opening a restaurant, you're doing exhibitions, the 30 lakh is bound to increase.
So I think
So what kind of student?
I think we should move to
Talking
the
about
next
15 lakhs.
What? What did you say?
When students are talking about what kind of students are we talking about? School students? You have mentioned 15 lakh visitors per year.
In the case it was mentioned just students. So we'll consider both college and school students.
Yeah, and everyone is grilling us on the fact
So
of
how
revenue and
can to
profits.
bring them
We need-
back every year?
It's the location is Mumbai. India's population is increasing, so and it's youth population, so the number is supposed to increase, which is why
स्टूडेंट्स को कौन सा इंटरेस्ट होता है आर्ट में? स्टूडेंट को कौन सा इंटरेस्ट होता है आर्ट?
भाई मेरे को तो है,
nothing was
मेरे को
changing.
तो है.
तुम एक
When
को है,
nothing was
बाकी
changing, it went from 10 to 11 to 12. Now we're organizing all of these new things, so 10 to 12 to 15 nahi hoga.
It is not only.
Acha, RV, we
only
will
that art,
entertain
like
other
the-
questions later. So I think we can move to the next team.
I have one thing to say before we continue, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please go on.
Okay, so everyone has been grilling us about the fact that our revenue doesn't incur our costs, right? But the profit should incur the cost, not the revenue. Revenue is the money we have made. The profit is the revenue minus cost, right? So
Yeah.
in the given case, we are technically showing us to be a non-profitable organization with reaching the break-even situation.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Harsham? Okay, so let's begin. Good evening, everyone. Our presentation for Sarmaya Arts Foundation Revenue Problem Case Study. I'll be dealing with the first question. What are the causes for decline in revenue? So the first problem is the number of tourist visits have decreased every year from 5 lakhs to 3 to 1. And the second problem being entry fees of the ticket, entry fees is really low and has been constant every year. And the third being number of visits by art enthusiasts have been increasing every year, but the number of membership purchased has remained constant, due to which there is no increment. And the third being membership fees, like for the art enthusiast, is high. Going on to Sonagda.
Okay, now we will look into the optimum membership fee for improving the revenue problem. We have gathered all the various data from the problem statement. The first, second, and the third tables show the given data, and thus we will now focus on table 4, which gives the revenue chart from ticket sales. We can clearly see that the revenue collection from the ticket sales of students and tourists has decreased year on year from 2018 to 2020. Next slide, please. Okay, we will now focus on table 5, which shows the revenue from the membership sales to art enthusiasts. Currently, we are selling memberships at 200 rupees price bracket for 50,000 membership sales, accounting for a revenue of 1 crore rupees. But if we change our 200 rupees price bracket to 180, we will see a spike increase in the number of membership purchasers, and which will give us a revenue increase of 53%. So we suggest to our client to choose this price bracket of 180 rupees revenue. Next, we move on to table 7, where we can see that the revenue from gift sales to tourists have decreased year on year, which is a major problem. Now we combine all this data from all the various tables into table 6, which is give us the earnings before taxes. We can see in 2018 we broke even, but in 2019 and 2020 we incurred heavy losses. So, which is why we will be giving away a few number of recommendations to our client, which will be said by Harsham.
Yeah, so I'll be taking the third question. Here we will suggest a few of the following recommendations for eliminating our revenue problem. So firstly, the art enthusiasts, that is the members, should have a cap on the number of visits, that number being, for example, 10, after which they will again have to renew the membership at a lower price than the initial. Furthermore, they'll have added benefits like access to the more high valued and rarer sections of the museum. And we have to limit the number of visits because the unlimited number of visits by the members is a big reason for the lower revenue generated. As the visits are increasing, so the maintenance costs are also increasing. And even for 10 visits, the tourists would have generated a revenue of rupees 300 as compared to rupees 180 by members. Also, the membership fees should be set to optimum amount as discussed in the earlier slides. Students and art enthusiasts should also be targeted to be convinced to buy gifts. We know that a comparatively lower percentage of this target audience tend to buy gifts, but even if 10 to 20% of them are convinced to do so, it will add a boost to our revenue. We'll also recommend that the price of tickets should be increased. We would foundation as eliminating a problem for the constant decrease in tourist visits and
on show me. Getting harsh.
Six five.
6% first. Any specific reason for that, and just like that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, team 6, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Krishnamurthy, can you please show the slides? Yeah, hello, I am Arindam and my team consisting of Krishnamurthy and Harsh. We are going to present the case. So let me tell you about Sarmaya Arts Foundation first. It's a Mumbai-based non-profit organization, and in the last year, the museum attracted almost 2 million visitors. It's a lot. Despite this, the museum's revenue has been declining for the last 3 years, and we are going to addressing why the revenue have been decreasing for the last 3 years. Yeah, here we have listed out 2 points. First is that every year the total 50,000 annual membership passes are sold, right? But the number of visits are small. In 2020, 8 art enthusiasts visits. So we can assume that the number of art enthusiasts are visiting multiple times, but 8 at the most. We can tell family and friends of art enthusiasts are also visiting with their passes only. So multiple users are visiting with the same pass. This is and I mean they are visiting with the passes. So this is one of the and might be reason revenue. Another thing is that the number of students are decreasing yearly. Okay. So we can assume that the students are also entering with the membership passes which they are getting from the art enthusiasts. This is also a problem because students are another way they can get a human. Right? They are
and okay, so the optimum price should be 2 by the increasing because we see with increased so to keep 50,000 membership only would have to rupees 200. I lost the ways to not increasing to get a large number of applicants. So we try to keep it with rupees 200 in order to neither make a answers and make it to that we are doing the previous trend. After doing qualitative analysis, we have come to a solution that the card that the membership are providing is some that we can track the place. Introduction of discount, for example, 12 rupees for one person and 10 rupees for 5 people in a group. So that if one person is coming along with 5 other persons, so consider it may be from his family or from his friend, so they would get one person and not have to pay any charge. Campaign for division in various schools and colleges to attract the crowd. We will be campaigning for the art enthusiasts in schools and colleges for getting the visitor base more and more. And for that, we would have to hire some person, but that would be nominal because the persons from the museum and the presenting museum. Organizing of very competition for the end, we would organize competition to make artworks and to have competition on, so people come and people come and get to know our artifacts. So this is the way we are going to have more user base. Over to you, Disandra.
Yeah, so we have we have to break. So to achieve the break even, we have to the revenue among students, tourists, and art enthusiasts. And from the students' side, we have to decided to keep the total number of students as constant and the price per ticket is variable. Same with the tourists, the number of tourists are constant and the price per ticket variable, and the gifts also variable. For the art enthusiasts, as it was mentioned in the question, that the number has to be 50,000 each year. So we have made it constant and the price per ticket to be a variable one. So in the quantitative analysis, what we have done is we have first seen that we have to take the total revenue from membership cards as 200 into 50,000, which is equal to 1 crore. So in order to achieve the break even, we have also decided to increase the fees of the students because 2 rupees won't be too much of pressure on the students to visit museums. And we have multiplied with the total number of students happens 2020 data. We have also increased the price of the tickets for the tourists from 3 to 35 and the gift price from 50 to 54. Totally get a total amount of 89. And if since we have seen that in 2020 there were as far as I remember, there were 8 lakh visits from the art enthusiast side, but as we have introduced identification and other facilities, we have capped the total number of visits to around 50,000. So it will actually increase the number of tourists and the number of tickets tourists will buy. So we have assumed that the number of tourists will increase to a number of 4 lakh, and to 4 lakh we get 3.56 crores, and totaling them we get a total amount of 7 crores. So yeah, thank you.
As this is a non-profit organization, so we are just more concerned about coming to the break-even point. And if it get profitable, then we'll be using that money for other purpose of the renovation purpose, or we'll be getting some more art crafts in that museum. Thank you.
Good point, Harsh. Guys, just take me to the second slide once. So I just wanted to point out something technical out here. The font is not very much visible on a, the white text on yellow is not very much visible. So just try to change that. Try to present your solution in a bullet format. So that's just an advice I have. Coming to the questions I'd like to ask, the reason for revenue decline, you all figured it out as decrease in the number of tourists, right? So I don't think increasing the ticket fee would increase the number of tourists visiting the museum. So how do you tackle this problem of declining number of tourists?
So what we have figured out is that the number of tourists, the number of art visits of the art enthusiasts are increasing, and the number of visits from the tourist side is decreasing. So we are assuming that tourists are procuring the membership passes from the people, and they are visiting the museum in the name as art enthusiasts.
So let's leave that aside because see, tourist is someone who will visit Mumbai to see the Sarmaya Arts Museum maybe from a far off place. So it won't definitely make sense that I being from Kolkata will purchase a membership thing at Sarmaya Arts Museum, and I'll visit that museum only once a year, right? So let's assume that even the art enthusiasts remain constant, the student visits have remained constant, but only the number of tourists to Sarmaya Art Museum has declined. So what's the remedy for that?
So in order to tackle with that, we have just told that we should introduce various competitions for art enthusiasts from all over India or the world to come and show their talent, which will indirectly attract a lot more tourists. And we are also campaigning in various schools and colleges about the various exhibitions.
Got it. So within the peak tourist
To
season, you
increase
all
that
can plan for something in the museum.
Yes, Shamridhi, can you please repeat again?
Maybe during the peak tourist season, you all can plan something in the museum. Maybe that will attract a footfall more than campaigning in schools and colleges, because that again adds up to the student population. Yeah, Harsh, go ahead.
Samriti, actually, what you told, Harsh already mentioned that we are going to campaign and we are going to do our marketing in the airports or in like in railway stations or somewhere where the tourists will come actually to the city, right?
Got it. Got your point. Any other
Example,
questions?
we would be highlighting a point that, for example, if a tourist coming to Sialda station, suppose, or Howrah station, we would be having a separate corner where one or two people from the museum would be there. There would be a display board, and they would be showing some art and craft, so that the tourists get attracted to visit the place more. So we are here to create the hype.
Point taken. Yeah. Any other questions on the floor?
Yeah, could I ask a question? Are
Ahead,
you
yeah.
guys on it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So, in the qualitative analysis section, there was some point about there being a clubbing of people and there being subsidies. I did not see that in the cost structure. I didn't understand how that was impacting. Also, about the campaigning of exhibition in various schools and colleges. When you've drawn out your framework, you've considered number of students is constant. Then what's the point of campaigning if the number of students is not increased?
While advertising or while we are going for a campaign, we are not sure about the effective increase in the number of tourists, but we are considering it and we are guessing it that the number of students will increase. So while calculating in the calculation part, we have taken the original value of the students, that the number of visitors of the as a students. So we have not taken there. But if the campaign gets successful, because if the campaign not gets successful, then we would be left with that the optimum level that the students are coming from last 3 years. But if the campaign gets successful, you get more. But if the campaign don't get successful, we would be having that optimum number of students for sure. So we have taken that as a minimum amount, a minimum value.
Fair enough, but that's true in case of every advice. Your advertisements may or may not work. Your campaigning may or may not work.
No,
But when
we
you're
are saying that
considering it,
our
you're supposed
campaigns
to
may or may not work. Our advertisements may or may not work. But we are saying that the optimum level will remain the same. Because as we are going through the trend of the 3 years, our optimum level will remain the same. We are not on a negative side. We would either go on a positive side or we remain on the side that from the last 3 years we are having. That's the point.
Any other questions?
Actually, I have one. Like, what can I actually improve upon in this case?
We'll take those at the end, or maybe you can text us personally. So yeah.
Okay.
So if there's no other question, I think Atharva, if you want to ask something, yes, go ahead. Or else we can move on to the next team.
Deepan is
Yes.
present.
Yes, just wait a minute. My tab preview is not working. Yes. So basically, I am the director of Sharmaya Arts Foundation, and Siddhartha and Shomodeep will give me the solution of how to break even after having a loss over the past 3 years. So, coming to
So,
the point that
Doipan, I want to ask you that what are the problems you are facing, and I want to know the basic revenue model of your museum. So go ahead.
Yes. So we are basically a non-profit organization based in Mumbai, and our operational cost and government grants have been constant since the last 3 years. And you can ignore any environmental and man-made damage because those have not happened. And our revenue has been generated from mainly 4 places: basically the entry ticket fee, grants and donations, gift items, and membership fees. Grants and donations have been fairly constant over the 3 years, and we have the operational cost, like paying the employees and maintenance cost. And I can give you the graphs of the revenue and the number of visits over the 3 years. And now,
So, as we can see that the number of tourists here have decreased over the 3 years, and so are the gifts purchased by them. While the other three factors, such as the student entry fee, membership fee, and grants, have been constant. The students have increased, but and art enthusiasts have also increased, but they couldn't make up properly due to the decrease in tourists over the 3 years. Next slide, please. So also the this decline in tourists have resulted in less number of gifts purchased, and also along with the loss in the entry fee revenue. Focus has also not been given in the growing art enthusiasts and student audience to maximize the revenue. Next slide, please. So from our calculations, we can say that the optimum membership fee could be rupees 180. That is 10% less than the previous one, 200. So maximum revenue that can be generated is 180 into 90,000, which amounts to 1.62 crores. I would like to hand over it to Siddhartha now.
So we have seen the optimization in the membership fees, but still we feel that there are some other recommendations we can imply to increase the revenue. Like for attracting the tourist, art shows can be held in different parts of the day. They can also have an entry fee of say rupees 40 per show. Also, we know social media comes very handy these days, and social media can be used for promotion, and bloggers can be invited for more reach. Also, the adding to the membership fee, we have decided to make a plan. Like there will be rupees 180 with which for which we will allow like 50 days they can visit in 1 year, and also they can also take the 350 rupees for who are very much enthusiastic about the arts, and so they can take rupees 350 for unlimited visits. And also the for especially for the student population and the young audience, and also for everyone, food stalls and small cafeteria can be kept outside for refreshments. And so that's all from our side. I hope you are content. So thank you.
Interesting way of presentation, team. That was really great. Now, just one suggestion about the PPT. I think you all used a 3D chart somewhere. Avoid using that. Also, I would like to mention team 3 and team 4 were great with the calculations and the charts as well. I forgot to mention earlier. So yeah, good work there. Yeah, about the questions, the floor is open.
I could go for a question.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned there'll be two types of memberships, right? There'll be 180 for 50 days and 350 for unlimited. If we average out the current structure, it's 16 visits for the 200, right? So
Yes.
expecting that somebody would go beyond 50 after a point, do you think that's not like that's too big of an estimation?
Yes, actually, we didn't. There was a change in the case study file. First, it was number of visitors, and then it was number of visits. We didn't calculate the number of visits. Then I would have kept that for 20, basically.
Right, fair enough.
And we just calculated 50 because that's the number of weeks, and that's close to the number of weeks. That's the closest
Okay.
round number to the number of weeks. So one art enthusiast can visit 1 day per week or something like that.
So there's another question regarding the membership fee that popped up. Suppose I'm paying 200 rupees and I'm getting unlimited number of visits every year. Now next year when I go for my renewal, then I find it's either 180 rupees for 50 days or it's shoot up by 150 rupees for unlimited number of visits. And suppose I belong to that category who needs to visit the art museum for more than 50 times in a year, and also I do not belong to the category who can dish off 350 rupees. Maybe that's becoming an additional pressure for me. So how do you think of tackling that?
The first of all, the 350 level, where we don't have that much data to decide the optimum pricing for the unlimited. Yeah. So that's a very bad assumption, probably bad approximations, I would say. But anyway, we can justify that by going that with 180 we got 90,000 something, like we got an increased number. We got 40,000 plus, supposedly 40,000 plus memberships, and the number of persons going above 50 days, that's very low. Even if you probably go through the curve, that will be something like 1% or lesser than 1%. So I don't
Yeah, so
think.
that's mostly dependent on market research more, but fair assumption. Yeah. Any more questions? Teams, come on. Seeing none, we can move ahead with the next team, and I think that's the last team here.
Okay.
Good work, team. Atharva, we can have the next team on board.
Let me present. So is my screen visible? Okay, so let's start. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Rasul Islam, and my team and I are going to we. Sorry. So, hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rasul Islam, and my team and I am going to present our case study on Sarmaya Arts Foundation. So as you already know, like quite well about this foundation, so let's go for like directly to the problems. Okay. So there we have causes for decline in revenue. So as stated by our client, even after a steady growth over like last 3 years, we can see there is a decrease in revenue. So what is the culprit here? So let's find out. So you can see this red line is the number of visits by tourists is declining, even though the total number of visits per year are increasing. So let not keep in mind that this the number of tourist visits are the very key contributor to the revenue of the museum, because these tourists buy on 50 like on an average 50 rupees of gift from the museum with cause like with is contribute 1.5 crore rupees to the museum. So here is very simple calculation for it, like 3 lakh increment over the 3 years, and 200 per average by others, and 1.5 crore the revenue. So, and also the ticket price of tourists are very high. It's 30 rupees per head. So if there like if 3 lakhs visitors over increment over 3 years, so we got a 90 lakh over 90 lakh revenue over 3 years. So here's the calculation about it. So, and also we can also like there is very slight increment in the number of students visiting. So the total revenue by them by selling 10 tickets are 20 lakh. And over the last 3 years, the museum is giving only 50,000 membership. So the revenue from there is constant over 3 years. So the main reason is the decreasing tourist visit. Okay. So, and also the number of visits over the years are increasing because the frequency of the frequency by the membership holders are increasing. Here you can see. Okay. So over to Rahul.
Okay. We took the statement every year 50,000 memberships are sold as condition, and by assuming that we are introducing our dynamic pricing model, from the graph we can see that 30,000 people are ready to get the membership for 300 rupees. We will offer them platinum membership by which they can get unlimited visits. And there are 40,000 people who are ready to get the membership for 250 rupees, but we will keep them a gold membership by which they can get limited visits, like 4 visits per month. This is how we have generated our revenue 1.4 crore, that is 40% more than the previous. This is how we got the optimum membership price.
Okay, so coming to our break-even model for the 2020 pricing, we can see here like the revenue, considering all the elements, students, tourists, gift purchase, government grant, and new optimum membership pricing model, we get a total revenue of 5.2 CR. And the operating cost is 7 CR, and assuming that gifts have a 20% margin of profit. So the cost of one gift, like the cost price of one gift made by the museum, made by the Arts Foundation, amounts up to 0.8 CR. So we get a total of 7.8 CR. So even after tweaking the membership fee, we can see that the break even can't be achieved. Rasidul, the next slide. So suggestions for increase in revenue. The first one, we have to increase the number of tourist visits. So for that, to attract tourists, we would like to set up a website of the Arts Foundation, which has a collection catalog, and give them the option of online ticketing option. And we can partner with as many tourism agencies as we want, and then social media marketing, as we all know, Gen Z era. So now, in an assumption, if we partnership with tourism agencies, assuming that the agencies pull in 25K extra tourists with a ticket price of 30 per head, then the revenue generated is almost 7.5 lakh. Assuming that the museum pays 20% commission to the agency, there is still a net profit of 6 lakhs. Okay, Rasa, the next slide. So now we would like the Arts Foundation to introduce art-themed stationery for the students who are willing to buy. So let's assume there are 12 lakh students going. So 10% of them from the primary, 20% from the secondary, 35% from the senior secondary, and 35% from the college students going, visiting the museum. Now, from those 10% of those primary students, as we assume that only 10% of those 10% primary students visiting buys it. So that amounts up to 12K, and correspondingly, all the students amount up to 3.12 lakhs. Now, assuming that the average sale is rupees 50, it's very nominal. The total revenue amounts up to 1.56 CR. The next slide. Now, we would also like to introduce guides who will walk you through the Arts Foundation. We'll tell you about the historical importances, like when we all visit, like we've all visited Taj Mahal, Fatehpur Sikri. We have asked for guides, right? They tell us about the historical importance, and people really enjoy learning about that. So, assuming that 2 lakh tourists, assuming that only 25K tourists are opting for a guided tour, and we divide them in an average size of 5, so that amounts up to 5,000 groups. So, and with an average price of 25 per head, we get the total price comes out to 6,25,000. So, when assuming that the guides take a 30% commission, there's still a net profit of 4.3 lakhs. So, these are the ways we would suggest that that Sarmaya Foundation increase their revenue. Thank you.
So are we achieving the break even there, given the recommendations and after the increased revenue?
We haven't calculated yet.
I haven't calculated, but